Hey guys, welcome to SheKnowsArsenal. My name is Jessica. I'm your host. You can follow me on Twitter at JustinoTweets and at SheKnowsArsenal. Welcome to the match preview. We are going to be gearing up, doing all the build up for Man City versus Arsenal in the FA Cup. Yeah. So I'm wearing my Arsenal onesie, so I'm super excited about this game. We're going to talk about how strong is too strong, for Arteta to go. Is going too strong, maybe giving away some of the secrets. We do have 2 games still to play against Man City in the league. Should we be expecting to go through, and where does the FA Cup kind of fit in terms of Arsenal's priorities this season? There is a difference of, I think, opinion on that. And so we'll get into all of that meat and potatoes, obviously. Team news, some players are in, some players are out. So we'll talk about that as well. Predictions. And yeah, so make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel so we can get into it. There's about 80 of you guys already in here, which is insane. Like the video and subscribe to the channel. Amira says, games at 4 a.m. for me. I don't know how I feel about it. The least I'm hoping for is a good game. Kara Student says 9 a.m. for me. That's really early, y'all. Gunnar Patel says, come on, Arsenal. Full strength team today, in my opinion. Really want to win this game. Vincent says, hello, gorgeous. Thank you so much, Jess. Hope you're good. I'm doing very well. Keenan says, going to be a fantastic game. Laska says, hey, Jess. Hey to you as well. Deb M says, hey, Jess, nervous for this one. Vincent Lucky says, we're winning tonight. Trossard, the process. I like that as well. Frank M says, hi, Jess. Hello to you as well. Football Talk Today says, are you American? Yes, I am. And C. Walder says, I think I'd like to see some of the second team in the first half and then maybe bring on the first team players in the second half when required. Hi, by the way, hello to you as well. So if you weren't, around for the first stream of the day, because maybe it was too early, we did cover Caicedo, and so we'll cover that as well now, just in case you haven't kind of gotten the update on that. You're not quite sure what's going on, so we'll talk about that first, just because it's topical, and we have a little bit of time. Caicedo has been heavily linked to Arsenal as well as Chelsea in this January transfer window. There are Arsenal put in a £60 million bid this morning or earlier on today. And it was obviously swiftly rejected by Brighton because they say that Arsenal or Moises Caicedo is not for sale in this window. And but Arsenal still made sure they put in the £60 million bid. And so we're waiting to see whether or not Arsenal will put in another bid for Caicedo. And multiple reports are saying that Arsenal will put in another bid. And I feel like they're being encouraged by Caicedo and Caicedo's environment, meaning his agent. He recently switched agencies, and he is keen to make a move in January to either Chelsea or Arsenal. He would like to play for a top 6 club. Who wouldn't? And so he is pushing for the move. And regardless of what Brighton are saying, he does want to leave. So Journal Half, who is a Brighton correspondent, said Brighton are not open to the sale of Moises Caicedo this January. This is even the case after the 60 million bid from Arsenal. Moises Caicedo is ready to hand in a transfer request in order to make a move to a big club in January. That's from Sammy McBell. And then Arsenal do remain interested in Declan Rice for the summer, regardless of the outcome of their pursuit for Moises Caicedo. About an hour ago, Alex Howell from BBC said talks are ongoing between Arsenal and Brighton about Moises Caicedo, and it's anticipated that Arsenal are going to put in another bid. So quite similarly, to what happened with Douglas Luiz at the end of the summer transfer window, where Arsenal, I feel like, were encouraged by Kia Jarapshin and Douglas Luiz obviously wanting to come to Arsenal. They are putting in bids to see if they can persuade Brighton to part with Moises Caicedo. Now, there are only a couple days left until the end of the transfer window, and so it does make it more difficult, I think, to complete a deal for the player, but he is pushing for the move, and I do think that makes a significant difference. How much is it going to cost to get Moises Caicedo to Arsenal/Chelsea? I don't know, but most reports are saying if they can get up to 80 million or so, that could bring Brighton to the table. So we're about 20 million off, and the original reports did say that bidding starts at 75 million. So Arsenal would have to come up significantly in order to get Brighton to start negotiations potentially, but Arsenal are pushing for a midfielder, and they need to. With El Neni potentially being out for the rest of the season, having Sambi Lokonga as kind of your only option for the deepest role in midfield should Thomas Partey be unavailable, I do think leaves us in a precarious circumstance where if you're every single position or every single game coming up to the back end of the season becomes a title decider. If we were in, the beginning of April, still sitting top of the league, 5 points clear, 2 points clear, 1 point clear, level with Manchester City, whatever it is, the last thing you kind of want to do is going into the last 10 games of the season, maybe relying on somebody who's never been in a title race before, hasn't really settled into the sixth role, doesn't really seem to have a lot of confidence when playing there. And the club doesn't either say, that the club is also making moves that make it feel like they're not confident in him playing that role. So they have to bring somebody in. Now, for me, I'm all for Arsenal going for players that in the long term are going to feel like they belong as a part of this story, and not just panic buying and bringing in players that aren't really up to the level just because El Neni is out and we don't really trust Sambi. Because again, we're going to be stuck with these players. So you don't just want to bring in anybody. So, and anybody for me would be like bringing in McKinney or Onana. That would be bringing in anybody to me. So we'll see what happens with that. I'm sure Arsenal will put in another bid, but there's also another player that we're interested in Martin Zubamendi, who there's conflicting reports on whether or not he'd come in January, but should, Moises Caicedo not work out, it'd be interesting to see if Arsenal do try to trigger the release clause for that player, because I do think coming out of this window without a DM, especially knowing El Neni is out for a significant amount of time, would put us in a bad position, potentially. So that is kind of the update on Moises Caicedo. Stephen Jones says, with Brighton's league position and form, I will be really surprised if Caicedo will leave in January. Should look at a potential loan move for a midfielder. I mean, easier said than done, Stefan. I know it said look for a loan move. Who, we need a number 6 that, is better than what we have. So is better than Sambi. And we know that with definitively that they're better than Sambi, that midway through the season would be happy to be sitting behind Thomas Partey. So there's still a chance that they may not be getting that much playing time, who's also not so important to their team that their club would be willing to let them go mid-season. So you look at players like look at Gravenberch, look at Camavinga. Both players, their clubs have already said that they're not open to let them going out on loan. So for me, it's easier said than done to find somebody who actually solves our problem. Not a number 8 that we think maybe can play that position, but a number 6 who is better than Sambi, knowing that definitively, that will be okay sitting behind Thomas Partey. It is also not important to their squad midway through the season so that their club would be willing to let them go on a loan. So it's easier said than done. And I can understand why Arsenal are more looking for permanent deals, because offering big money for really good players in January is the only way to really get that done, I think. Stuart says, what is the most you would spend on a midfielder? I don't know. I mean, because for me, it depends on what kind of midfielder it is. Is it somebody that's going to be potentially, the person that's going to take over for Thomas Partey in the future? I'd pay a lot for that. Somebody that we know will never start, is never going to be the number 1 choice, cannot sit in. Like after we get done, even if we win the Premier League, we're looking at that player like, we still don't want you to be starting games. We can't see you starting games. I'd pay no more than 20 million for a player like that. And so the heir to Thomas Partey's throne kind of thing is something that I'd spend a lot on, to be honest. Let's see what you guys are saying. We'll get through this pretty quickly and then get onto the game. El Dennis says, I want all of them. Rice, Zubamendi, Caicedo. Let's create a proper super team like Durant, Curry, Warriors. That would be great, but I don't see that happening. But yeah. Saturday equals youth says Caicedo 70 million, Zubamendi 60 million, Rice 90 million. Pick one. If I had to pick right this moment, I'd probably go with Zubamendi for 60 million. If I just had to choose right now, because we need a number 6. And for me, Rice, you guys know how I feel about Rice. I'm not sure he's actually a number 6. If we're still interested in Rice coming in the summer, regardless of Caicedo, and Caicedo's coming in now to fill in El Neni's position because El Neni is out for the season. That tells me that Caicedo is the 6 and Declan Rice is the 8. And so I need a 6, and Zubamendi is that. So that's who I would choose. And that's who I would actually be trying to pursue, or right now anyway, to be honest. Like, I think offer him a couple more wages and see if he'll leave mid-season. I think he's a good player. After looking at the YouTube comps, I'm going to say right now, I haven't been watching him since 2000 and whatever. But looking just comp-wise, when I was watching him play, I thought that looked like an Arsenal player to me. There's 200 of you guys in here. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Again, just doing a brief kind of update on Caicedo, just in case you weren't here in the morning. And then we'll get on to the more previewy stuff in just a minute. Prince says Zub is a far better player. D. Ray says we should be going for Sangare. He's a baller. Something about Sangare and the fact that nobody is really, though, you know what, the only team that I saw really go in for Sangare was Chelsea. They did go in for him, but they didn't trigger the release clause or whatever. So I don't know, but doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in him, even though tons of teams have needed DMs last window and this window. So something makes me feel like he's not really that guy. But he does look good. Sports Capital says he has a clause, so I think that's a backup because it's easier to get the deal done with the clause rather than negotiations that take time. I hear that. And C. Walter says, I think Haidara is poised because they expect the transfer request from Caicedo. Keenan says if Brighton can get Haidara deal done in January, they will sell us Caicedo. So long way to go. Of course, we know that Chelsea are also interested in Caicedo. So there is still the chance that, you agree the fee and then Chelsea come in and say, well, we'll pay all of it up front. And Brighton say we like that deal a lot better. So I'm not getting too excited. Putting in an initial bid that's been knocked back is great, but we still the player needs to be on the website, in the shirt, before I start, jumping for joy and stuff. I do feel like Arsenal fans, we keep kind of like, getting super excited and doing the comps and all that. And I just think we need to just like hold our horses a little bit. Arsenal may yet go back in with a higher bid for Caicedo, but Brighton are insistent that he's not for sale in this window. That's coming from John Cross, who whatever. And I know that De Zerbi has already kind of said that he spoke to Caicedo like a son, and they're, have a good relationship. And he's told him that moving to a club mid-season can be really difficult. You should wait till the summer and all this kind of stuff. And he's calm. The guy is putting in a transfer request. He's not calm. He wants to leave. So I wouldn't listen to anything De Zerbi is saying at the moment. There's a deal to be done, I think, at a certain price, but we still have a long way to go. Arsenal's number one priority this window is Moises Caicedo. Arsenal are keen to make an improved bid to Brighton. Talks are ongoing, and that's coming from PJ Berger. So we'll see how that unfolds over the next couple of days. But yeah, I would be excited to see him at Arsenal, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Now, the game at hand, Manchester City versus Arsenal. Is it weird that this is the literal first time that I have not been afraid to play them in years? Like, I don't feel anything. I think one of the reasons why is because it's in the FA Cup, and I think when you get a really difficult fixture, a really difficult opponent so early on in the competition, it's kind of like, well, see, how we get on in it. But like losing to Manchester City for me would be nowhere near like as devastating as the way that we went out in the FA Cup last season, or because you're going out to the best team in Europe, or one of the best teams in Europe. So that's not to say that I'm saying it's a free hit or we shouldn't try to win or anything like that. I think we should take it very, very seriously. But I think there's an era of, for me, because once we got them, I was just kind of like, it's different to how I felt about the Carabao Cup, where I'm like, they rotated, we rotated, and we just kind of bottled it and we went out. You know, um, this is a little bit different than that. Now, how strong do I think we should go? I see a lot of Arsenal fans talking about this is not a priority. If you go too strong and you show them how we play, then, we'll be giving away trade secrets to them early before we play them on the 15th. One less game or a couple less games will help us down the stretch to win the league. It's so far down the priority list. Like, we should do this. I don't believe in that. I don't believe in that at all. I'm gonna tell you that this right now. I am not a fan of this whole idea that we should throw competitions to do better in other competitions. I think that momentum, winning more matches, getting that muscle memory together in terms of playing games every 3 days or whatever and being expected to win them is what Arsenal should be doing. And so I've never seen us go out of a competition early and we make our target because of it. Last season, we went out of the Carabao Cup early, right? Oh no, we went out of the FA Cup early to Forest, right? And yeah, we played in the white kit and we were out. And everybody was like, it's a good thing, it's a good thing, it's a good thing. Now we can focus on getting top four. And we did not make it. We did not make our target. You have no idea what we're going to be like in a month or 2 months. So prioritizing now so we're not in a final at the end of the season, for me, it just doesn't make sense. I feel like it's almost a cop out in a way, so that it's okay to lose because we're prioritizing something bigger. But for me, like, if we get to the end of the season and we have not won the league and we come in second or third or whatever, let's say we come in second, but we did not win the Europa League, we didn't win the FA Cup, and we did not win the Carabao Cup. For me, that is not worth prioritizing for. So there's no guarantee we win the league if we go out of this competition now. So we should take it very, very seriously, especially because it's Man fucking City. Okay. Like, they're the best team in the league. Like, we're the best team on form, but they're probably still the best team in the league. And so what do we have to lose? Now you'll tell me, oh, injuries, oh, injuries, oh, injuries. Give me a break. They if they're not playing today, they could get injured in freaking practice. They could get injured in training. So I don't want to hear it. The FA Cup is our cup, and we should go down. If we're going to go down, we should go down swinging. So I'm saying go strong. Now, do we have to go best 11 strong? No, because we have a little bit of depth now. But I think we should go out there with a respectable lineup, and not the type of lineup that says, yeah, Arsenal are trying to prioritize something different that we don't even know where we're going to be at in a month. We have no clue where we're going to be. So I think you go strong. And I think Arteta's going to go strong, because let's have it right. Arteta, since he's been manager, has only beat Man City once, and we've played them like a million times. Like, we haven't even scored at the Etihad in like 3 times that we've tried. So I think Arteta's going to want to get some momentum going instead of doing the cowardly thing and going, well, let's not really try to beat them and just try to like keep our powder dry for the league. You know what I mean? Because we need to beat them at some point. And there's no one guarantees we beat them in the league, So I think Arteta will go strong. We'll see a pretty strong lineup and people will be upset. But, like, come on. It's the FA Cup. It's a chance at a trophy. And at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, we're not going to remember all the times that we finished in the top 4. But we are going to remember the times where we won something. And so I think go big, go big. It is what it is. We have 8 more days until we have to play against Everton. away from home. So they have plenty of time to rest. Of course, you want to get out of there with injuries. But if you think that we should not play Thomas and we shouldn't play Xhaka and don't rest Saka, play your team, and that's kind of how I feel about it. 100%. Let's see what you guys are saying. Dan says the FA Cup is the least important cup. Fact. Well, it's not less important than the Carabao Cup or whatever. Like the Carabao Cup is probably like the smallest or the lowest down the. Well, let me just put it this way. Let's say we don't win the league and Man City overtake us and we finish second. But Manchester United finished third, but they win the Carabao Cup. Who had a better season? Let me know. Because the FA Cup is not an important cup and all this kind of stuff, that doesn't really matter. Like a trophy is a trophy is a trophy. And so when you win it, it's a big deal. Of course, everybody minimizes it when you don't win it, but it is a big deal and it's momentum. Every game that you win is momentum. If Arsenal can beat Man City now, they will feel like they can beat them in the league. But if you rotate and you get turned over, then when we play them on the 15th, I do think that there's a psychological element to this as well. But the FA Cup is least important and it's not our priority and all this kind of stuff. Every cup and every piece of silverware that you can win is a priority. And so I don't think Arteta is going to come out there with some lame lineup with, all the starters on the bench and all this kind of stuff. If that's what you think, you don't know Mikel, okay? Viola says, if for nothing, we need to beat them for momentum. Exactly. Rep says the Carabao Cup is not important, but the FA Cup is. Phyllis says, I want the Europa and League, the league this season. I want Europa and the league this season. To me, I would say that, in my opinion, the Europa League is less important. Winning the Europa League is less important to me than winning the FA Cup. And the reason for that is nobody considers Europa League a big European trophy. It's nowhere near the same level of notoriety or status or anything as the Champions League. So winning the Europa League, everybody that's won it, they never really talk about it. You don't hear Chelsea talking about it. You don't hear Man United talking about it because the whole point of winning it is really to make sure that you qualify for the Champions League. I think we'll qualify for the Champions League through the league. So actually, for me, the FA Cup, because it has a status and its symbolism within English football is so important and it's our cup. I actually think that winning the FA Cup is more important than winning the Europa League because we will qualify for the Champions League through the league. No one thinks that the Europa League is a European cup that you can, wave around and say, we want it. Nobody does that. You know what I mean? So it's a trophy and it's a chance at a trophy and we should take it serious. But for me personally, I think the FA Cup is actually more important because it's so symbolic to English football, and people that don't consider it so, I think are just kidding themselves. Daniel says the FA Cup is the oldest cup in the world, by the way. FA Cup is important. I was brought up on the FA Cup. It's a part of our history, and it's unfortunate that we drew Man City so early, but that's why I think we should still take it so serious. Let's see. Olu says, we have not won any European Cup since the Cup winners. The other clubs don't talk about it because they have Champions Leagues. We don't. No, I don't think we're sitting at a table next to Chelsea and Man United and saying, but we won the Europa League. Like, it's not. I think it's facts that Europa League is not a European trophy that people really consider a big European trophy. Now, if you're like Unai and you've won it a bunch of times, it's a big deal for you because you've won it so many times. But as an English team in the English Premier League, I would say winning the FA Cup, even though we haven't won a European trophy, like the European trophy we should be trying to win is the Champions League. For me, I don't think so. I think you'd be hard pressed to find somebody that waves around their Europa League trophy and says like, yeah, this is something. Like, it's just not. Sorry. Lucas says FA Cup is one game. Europa is two legs. If we beat City, United, and Spurs, we might be the only good team left. FA Cup is one game. Europa has 2 legs, and if we beat City, United, and Spurs, there might be only one good teams left. I hear what you're saying. Elliot Roberts says, we want to show a strong team, but do you want to show City your complete hand? We faced them twice after today. Got to play a bit of poker in this instance. Do you actually think that? Like, everybody knows how we play. There's no, like, I don't think that there's any sort of like hiding our cards against Man City. You know, I mean, there might be some things like Pep might overthink it or something like that, but I think for the most part, we kind of play our way and people know it. They just can't stop it. And so I don't know if I really buy into this playing into City's hand thing. Arnolito says, nah, Jess, we need that European trophy to get that good luck for when we go into the Champions League. I don't know. And the Cup Winners' Cup is more respected than the Europa League has ever been. So you can tell me it's because I'm American and all this kind of stuff. I'm sorry. Like, I think the only reason why you want to win the Europa League is not because it's a trophy that you're going to have in your trophy cabinet that you're going to be waving around to all your friends and, you know, this is what we want. It's because you want to make sure that you qualify for the Champions League. I've never heard an Arsenal fan say we need to win the Europa League because we need a European trophy. It's usually we need to win it because we need to qualify for the Champions League. I've just never heard that before. But I understand some people disagree. I just think that the FA Cup is such a big, historical, symbolic trophy that is so important to us in English football. And the Europa League is basically just a vessel to get into the Champions League. James T says, I disagree. Winning a European Cup would get that ticked off the list, could provide confidence moving into Champions League next season. When people say, do you have your status in Europe? They're usually just talking about Champions Leagues. I don't know. I guess because I'm talking about when we're sitting at a table with Chelsea and Man United, you know, Liverpool and stuff like that. I don't think that when we're talking about European pedigree, we're talking about the Europa League. I don't think you can come up with 3 Europa League trophies and people are not going to be like, but it's Europa League. Do you know what I mean? I don't know. I just have to agree to disagree with you guys on this one 100%. Frank says, not often we get a practice game before the league. I think we should go strong, play it like a final, win or lose them. We know where we are versus them. I agree. I do think that it's important to like make sure that they at least know that, you know, when they come to the Emirates and when we go to the Etihad, that they're going to have a game and we're not the same Arsenal that we were just rolling over. And I think we showed them that at home, but there is kind of like a mental block there. There has been over the last couple of years. We just haven't been able to score any goals at the Etihad. We just been running around, chickens with a head cut off, you know, just how long before we get the red card. Like, it's been really a catastrophe over the last couple of years. And so we definitely need to make sure that we show them that they're at least going to have a game and we're a serious club. Andy says, I think we finished second in trophy list this season. For me, that's just, it's so funny because I really think people are like, and nobody answered my question, I think because you guys know I'm right. Tell me if I'm wrong. But if we finish second and we have no trophies, but Manchester United finished third and they win the Carabao Cup, who had a better season? You know, come on. Keenan says the poker analogy is dumb. Pep runs the exact same system. That's how I feel. I feel like we're not really holding anything back. You know, they know we're going to play. They know the 11 we're going to play, unless he decides to play Trossard. That's the only player that I think could actually break into the starting 11 that quickly. But I don't see us throwing any different types of plays or anything out there where he'll be like, oh, well, I didn't see that coming. You know, let's see. Dev M says, I don't think City will be able to beat us all 3 times we meet this season. I don't either. I would love for this to be the time that we beat them, and then we beat them at the Emirates, and then we have to get something at the Etihad. I think it's so important because it gives you wiggle room. Just in case you drop a pointer here or there, against teams you're not supposed to. Adrian says, why is choosing one competition to another a debate? We want it all, don't we? Well, I would want it all, but if you ask a lot of Arsenal fans, the FA Cup's not that important. We should go after the Europa League only. We should do this. We should do that. And I think we should go strong. My point in this is I think we should go strong in every competition and try to win all of them. My personal opinion that everybody can, it's fine to disagree with, is that if I had to choose between winning another FA Cup or winning the Europa League, I would say winning the FA Cup, because I think we'll qualify for the Champions League through the league. And I think that's the only reason why you really want to win the Europa League. Because I don't deem it as, when they talk about legacy or European pedigree, I don't think you're talking about Europa League. But that's just me. But there's 400 of you guys in here, which is insane. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. Now let's get into exactly what team that we anticipate seeing. First of all, Emile Smith-Rowe is injured again. And so I think that's just, it's so unfortunate. I think with a lot of players that have these types of injuries, they tend to have injuries in other places and, stuff like that as they're starting to recover. But when we were kind of talking during the World Cup, a lot of people, and me as well, were anticipating Emile Smith-Rowe being a big, big, big boost post the World Cup. And we're now knocking on the door of February, and he hasn't been available really at all. He's played maybe 10 minutes or so against Spurs, and that's it. And so it's really unfortunate to see him not being able to play in this match. I think this would have been a good game for Emile Smith-Rowe to come back into the fold in some capacity. And so he won't even be there. So he's not somebody that we can use in this game. I'm also, seeing conversations about whether or not Emile Smith-Rowe should be a player that is at Arsenal beyond this summer. I don't think we're anywhere near those types of conversations right now. We're in the midst of building a squad, and we know Emile when he's on it. I think he deserves another chance without this particular injury plaguing him to show what he can do, because he was one of the youngsters that, like with Saka, really brought us out of the dungeon, So I think Emile Smith-Rowe at least deserves, some more time to get back into the squad. But also having Trossard makes it less of a blow. Like if we had not brought in Trossard and ESR had this injury, I do think we'd be like really freaking out. So it is what it is. And he says ESR is out injured again, one more season. Then if he's still injury prone, then we have to let him go. Corey says Smith-Rowe is only 22 years old. People need to react. We did the same with Gnabry. Keenan, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, can we sell ESR already? Ability equals availability. Or yeah, I hear what you're saying. They gave him the number 10. And for me, numbers are significant. I think you only get certain numbers if people really believe in you. And so to move on from Emile Smith-Rowe so quickly, I do feel like would be a little bit we don't need to get rid of ESR. Do you know what I mean? I think having good attacking options, midfield-wise, and in your attacking line is something that we haven't had the luxury of in a long time. And really, until there's a backup for Saka, I still think he can play on that side. He offers something a little bit different. So for me, right now is not the right time. I think he has another season. We'll be in Champions League next season. We'll have plenty of competitions for him to show what he can do. But beyond that, I do think that if he doesn't play next season, then we're looking at somebody that maybe we can't rely upon. Maybe you think about that then. Martin says, we have a very young team. It would be great if our players get some experience playing against other European opponents. That will help us next season when we play again in the UCL. Frank says, ESR is so sad. I hope it's nothing big. The club says it's precautionary. I hope so as well. So, yeah. But Like Dan says, Saka and ESR, exactly. Those were like the two players that really brought us out of the dungeon. And so ESR deserves more time, I think. That's important, I think. Mohammed says ESR is still my favorite Arsenal player. So yeah, I think because of, Reece Nelson not really being in the fold and not really being able to get a right winger, I think ESR you should keep him in the squad for a little bit longer, you know what I mean, and see what he can do. But ESR is not in the squad, but everything else is the same. There's no more injuries beyond El Neni and ESR. So I would imagine that we see the exact same team that we saw against Man United. The only change would be Trossard coming in. So I don't know. Maybe Tomiyasu could play. I don't know what was going on with Ben White. He did look strange against Man United. Maybe that was the bad game he had not had a bad game in so long. He was due a bad one, but it could also be that he's just playing the most in-form winger in the world right now in Marcus Rashford. And it just may not have been his day. But, against City, he'll potentially be playing up against, Jack Grealish, who's not really a speed demon, but likes to cut in and he's really tricky and likes to get fouled. So, is Ben White up for that? If Ben White's not up for that, I think the natural replacement and the only replacement is Tomiyasu. But I would expect, you see Ben White, Saliba, Gabriel, and Zinchenko, and then midfield would be exactly the same. And then Saka and Kedia, and then Trossard, because Martinelli looks like he may need a little bit of a rest, and Trossard is a grown-up, and I think he'll be able to step straight in and it'll be fine. Kevy Kev says, hello again, Jess. Hello to you as well. Dev M says, people sleeping on ESR, forgetting he was one of our best performing players last season. He'll come good once he shakes off this injury completely. What about Turner? I think I'd be okay with Turner playing today. Usually we have cup keepers versus, the starting keeper. Is this too big of a game to have Turner in? I don't know, but we generally stick with the cup keeper, so Turner playing may be something that happens. And also if we get to a PK situation, Turner is a penalty kick specialist. You know what I mean? So that might be something to think about as well. Let's see what else you Matt Turner is great. Exactly. And especially when it comes to penalty kicks and some things like that. Dev M says, Jess, do you think Kivior starts? With him, his agent was saying that their first goal was for him to start against Man City, but it may come too quickly. With the back line, I feel like the last thing you want is to change too many things. So I would be a little bit apprehensive about, especially away from home at the Etihad. If we were at home, I might try him, but Gabriel is our best away from home defender. Back against the wall, last ditch tackles, defending first. I think Gabriel has to play today because we're away from home. If we were at home, I may be more try him, but I think Gabriel still would be my choice. Again, I expect the only change in the back line to maybe be Tommy for Ben White. If something was wrong with Ben White, meaning he was ill or, maybe he wasn't maybe he has an injury or something, but I just think he was up against Marcus Rashford and Rashford was just on it that day. Andy says Trossard gives us a couple of years to see if we keep Emile or replace him. That's a really good point. Mark says, Jess, I think we have to go full strength or totally weak. We can't go half strong. I hear what you're saying. I think when we kind of pick some pieces out, I just feel like the continuity is gone. And so, especially in midfield, for midfield, I did see some people saying, play Vieira and Sambi. I'm like, no, no, sir. No, ma'am. Absolutely not. Because in midfield, as we saw against, I think it was Oxford. Again, it's Oxford United. There was a big break between defense and attack. There was no way to connect the two because Sambi and Vieira were afraid to get onto the ball, and we really struggled to connect those groups of players. And so a lot of that also was having Rob Holding in the back. And I would be very disappointed if Rob Holding started today, just because I don't think he will, but because that means that not only do we have to play a couple yards further back, but Man City will be way too smart to keep Gabriel off the ball and to make Rob Holding do all the dictating. So I think you have to start your starting CBs so that Man City feel like they have to respect us. But Rob Holding was a big part of why, like, we couldn't progress the ball. And then in midfield, Sambi and Vieira just wouldn't get on it. And so even if you were to change one midfielder, I think it has to be Thomas Partey, Xhaka, and Vieira, and Odegaard sits out. If you take out Xhaka or you take out Thomas Partey, I think everything kind of falls apart a little bit. So I would keep the same midfield anyway and just go with our strongest midfield. But if anybody, was to come out, I would say Odegaard and play Vieira. Big game for Eddie Nketiah, I think, because every time he scores against a big team, I think he gains more respect from those center backs. And I think he's the type of player that can give maybe a shaky Man City backed center back pairing some work. And so big game for Eddie to make sure that they don't have an easy day out. Saka is going to Saka all day long. Trossard, I expect him to do his thing if he does end up starting, and everything else to be what it is. If Man City start Haaland and KDB, we're cooking, because who they start, I think, also is going to show us a lot about what they think about us. Mahrez was in the media saying that we've been the best team so far, but we're coming to them and let's see, like this and that. So I think Mahrez will start. So Zinchenko versus Mahrez is a little bit like, what is this? But it's fine. But if they start KDB and Haaland, I do think that, one, that's going to be the biggest test for our center back pairing, and two, Pep really respects us. If they don't, and they start Alvarez and a kid, and they go with a weakened midfield, then I think we still haven't gotten the respect that we probably should have. And if they do start off with a team like that, we have to punish them. Period. Kevy Kev says Saka should be rested. We can't have him fatigued later in the season. He's 21 years old, young player. I don't think we're under threat of, I think we get too worried about these types of things. The fitness, the physios, they know what players are fit and which ones are not. Saka may be the type of player that needs to play more minutes in order to stay fit. Some players need that. I don't know what they call it, but there's a certain word where some players do better when they play more. And Thomas Partey has kind of been the type of player like that as well, where the more he plays and the rhythm, when he gains the rhythm, he keeps his fitness longer. Then once he gets injured and then he has start and stop, then you get more injuries and it's harder to get him in the groove. And so Saka may just be somebody that plays better when keeps playing. But I don't think Arsenal would risk one of their best players if he was in danger in the red zone. And I think we have to trust the club a little bit on this. That's what I would say. But Saka, who are you going to start if you don't start Saka? I guess that would be my question to you guys that are saying Saka should be rested. I mean, we don't have another right winger that can do the job. And don't you dare say Marquinhos. Okay, like, hello. No. Saka should start. I think having the ability to rest Martinelli is great because he looks like the player that needs to come out. But Saka, for me, looks like he's playing at the peak of his powers right now. I think you just continue to play him and hope he absolutely annihilates whoever they have at left back. But the only players I'd be more worried about with that is maybe like a Thomas Partey. The last two games, he had some shaky moments where he was passing, like he wasn't as sharp. And I connect a lack of sharpness with Partey, with maybe a little bit of a lack of fitness sometimes. And so he's the only player that I'm a little bit worried about, but there's nothing you could do about it. He has to play because there's no El Neni. Young says Arsenal should beat City because this might be the only trophy City can win the season. Well, they can still win the Premier League. let's keep it real. City can still win the Premier League. They can still win the Champions League. City are not in this like really weakened state that people keep talking about them being in. Yes, there may not be the same team tiki-taka, playing through a fluid front line, but they're only 5 points behind us in the league. They can still turn it up another notch. For me, I think City have 3 trophies that they can win still, and so do we. So we need to beat them. I agree with the first part, but I don't really agree with the second part that this is the only trophy that City can win. Still a very good team. Alex says Partey needs an understudy who will eventually replace him. That's probably why Arsenal are really looking at Caicedo. David says Arteta knows Guardiola is not a dirty manager with a fouling mentality, so it seems safer to play the best team, I believe. When we played Man City at home last season, I thought that was the dirtiest I've ever seen them play, to be honest. I thought Rodri was a fool. Like, he was just out there, he should have had at least a yellow card so early on in that game. And so I don't think this is going to be a nice game. I don't think this is going to be because they're too good footballing size. It's not going to be chippy. It's going to be in the back of those City players' minds that people are saying that they're falling off and this is the new kid on the block. It's going to be in the back of these Arsenal players' minds that they've never really scored at the Etihad and they need to win this game. And so I don't think this is going to be a nicey type of game. I do think you'll see the cynical fouls. You'll see, maybe like a Walker or somebody like that taking out one of our players. I think it's going to be a poppin' match. I really do. The idea that Pep is not going to tell his players to kick us because he likes Arteta, I think we misinterpret their relationship off the pitch as friendly when these are two really competitive men. Okay. So Ed says City do foul all the time. Famous tactical fouls. I agree. Some dude says Man City are going to try and crush Arsenal to jumpstart their Premier League challenge. We need full commitment. Come on, you Gunners. Andy says I would take 2 changes if we're going strong. Partey out for Kivior. Martinelli has been off since Newcastle, so it would give Trossard his first start. I know that Kivior has played as a defensive midfielder, but to start him at the Etihad against possibly like the best team in the league, I think would be a mistake. He has no continuity with his teammates. He's never played there in the Premier League, let alone with this team. And I don't see a defensive midfielder in Kivior. I see somebody who's played there because he's needed to for his team, but I think we need to play midfielders in midfield positions. That's kind of what I would go with. But, I understand some people are like, well, he's versatile, play him there. But I think Thomas Partey needs to start for us to have a chance at this game. C. Walder says, I agree. City will be smarting from Pep's recent remarks, so they will be at 110%. I agree. The only thing that works in our advantage is the fact that the Etihad is not necessarily a cauldron in any sort of way. It's not like playing at Old Trafford or Anfield or anything like that. So it's not going to be like the type of crowd that I think it's not the worst type of crowd to play in front of, if that makes sense. Let's see what else is going on in the world. Let's see if there's been any leaks on the lineups or anything like that. Probably not yet because we still have 2 hours, some change. It's weird that I'm not nervous, but I feel like I should be. Maybe I'm a little overconfident. But it's not that I think we're just going to like sweep them aside. I just think we're going to be in a really good situation where we're not going to be afraid to play them. And I think in the past, it hasn't been that we're so bad. It's that we didn't have the confidence to actually play against them. And we saw last season at home, when we played them, we had the confidence to play, and we're much better now than we even were then. And so I think we have a really good chance to give them a good game and come away victorious in this, Arsenal will open the door for Sambi Lokonga if they're to bring in a midfielder in before deadline. I feel like that's so obvious. Teams are bidding for Sambi Lokonga. If you haven't heard, AC Monaco put in a bid for a loan bid and then another bid in for Sambi Lokonga. And you don't really do that unless you have encouragement from somewhere. And so I do imagine if we bring in a midfielder, Sambi will go. And I think it would be the right thing. He's not getting any playing time, and he doesn't really fit what we're trying to do right now. There's 300 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Now, how do we think the game is going to go? I think it's going to be a little bit tactical, a little bit like feeling each other out. But like most cup matches, there tends to be goals in them. And I think once the first goal goes in, it's going to be end to end. That's how I think. I don't think this is going to be a, boring match. I think there's going to be goals in it. And I think we're going to give a good account of ourselves. I just really, really, really want to beat them badly. Like I really, really do, because if we can, beating them now and beating them at home, I think are so, so important for our season. If we drop points away from home in the league, it is what it is. That's kind of how it goes. But beating them now and getting to the next round of the FA Cup and then also beating them at home, I think is going to be so, so important. And this is the first step, to show them that we're not the type of team that's just going to roll over and you're just going to score 3 or 4 goals and we're going to capitulate and crumble like we've done in the past. Like we have to play them like we did against, Chelsea, like how we did at, I know we lost, but we're brave against Man United, like away from home. Our away performances have been so good this season. I don't expect it to be any different. Rashab says, if we win, we have to start from zero if we win, we have to start from zero for PL game against City. If we lose, then also the same. This game has a completely different proposition. Well, if you mean like you can't take anything from it and it's a, like this game is separate and has no connection to those games, I think maybe you might be right. But at the same time, I do think that from an Arsenal perspective, even if they have a slightly rotated, group of players and we beat them and whatever, and it's in the cup, I think psychologically that's really good for an Arsenal team that knows they're going to play Man City 2 more times. So I get the idea that they're completely separate and they mean nothing. But for this young Arsenal side, I do think getting the Man City win is so important. We haven't beat them, in the league. Even when we played so well against them at home, we still lost. So I do think that it's going to have some sort of like effect on us. Maybe not negatively if we go out, but positively if we beat them. Man, we'll beat them at the Emirates. Amira says, feeling exactly like you do, Jess. The only times I've been nervous before games this season was United away and Newcastle. Whatever happens, I trust the squad to brush it off and fully focus on the next week. Yeah, I felt way more nervous about Spurs away, Manchester United away, and Manchester United at home than I did about this game. One, because I don't know any Manchester City fans, so I know they're not going to banter me like hello. But I just feel like we're going to give them a good game. Ben says, have to dominate the game. What I would say is, like, I don't know if I feel like we have to like be dominant, have the most possession or anything like that. I think we have to not be afraid. I think we have to not be afraid to play. I think in the past we've just been afraid to play, afraid to shoot, afraid to pass, afraid to hold the ball. I think we've just been afraid. And I think that's so important. AJ, thank you so much for your super chat. Says, with all due respect, you're losing tonight. Fair enough. Thanks for the money, though. Who pays somebody to tell them something like that? I mean, come on. We may lose today. There's going to be a winner and a loser, is what it is. Subdued says 3-3 draw with Arsenal 2-1 on the return tie at the Emirates. Fair enough. Dan says Stones is dog S. Expose him. I don't know if I think Stones is dog S. He's possibly been their best center back and one of the best center backs in the league this season. So I'm not sure that he's dog S, but okay. Mikey says we gave them a good game last season before losing. Exactly. Yo-Yo says Calvin Phillips starting and their center back choices will determine whether we win. If Calvin Phillips plays, we have to beat them. This is my thing. I know they can bring their better players off of the bench, but I feel like if Pep goes in with a team that has Calvin Phillips in it, maybe there's no Haaland. I think Haaland will start, but like they play Julian Alvarez, who's a great player, but still, you know, and he doesn't go with his best lineup. The disrespect alone should mean that Arsenal go out there and take it personal and beat them. If they don't respect us, then they should lose. Marsh says we need to continue with the momentum. I agree. Exactly. No refunds. But if you guys want to send like more money in, like more super chats and say how bad Arsenal is, please do. I will take that money. Okay. I don't give a shit. Okay. Arnolito says our game plan should be get something similar to Brighton. Our game plan should be something similar to Brighton, in my opinion. I mean, we came out swinging against Brighton. We got out ahead very early, and then we kind of sat back, and then they came at us. We conceded after 3-0. Then we scored another one. Then we conceded again. So I would say out of possession, if we cannot fall asleep and sit back in our shape and be more vigilant, I think that's better. I think when we sat back in our shape against Brighton, we got complacent, and then they picked us apart. And so I think sitting in your shape can be good against Manchester City because then they start passing backwards and sideways and get frustrated and stuff like that. But you can't just fall asleep like we did against Brighton. So it is a good game plan. I think we will come out quickly and all that kind of stuff. But yeah. Yeah. Rohan says, are Arsenal making bids just for saying, oh, look, we tried. We need a DM without any doubt. We were hijacked from Mudryk. Let's not do that again. No, I don't think Arsenal are making bids to say, oh, look, we tried. I think they're trying to get a player that they really want. But if you'd prefer Arsenal to like go out for a player that, you know, on a loan or somebody more obtainable, sometimes more attainable players are not that great. And so the DM market is not amazing. You have really, really good players that are going to cost you a lot. And then you have some average ass players that you could bring in. But you know, I don't think Arsenal are just doing it. I know there's a lot of anxiety around DM, so people are like, just loan somebody in. But we kind of talked about this earlier. It's a really tall order to find a number 6 that fits what we're trying to do, that's indefinitely better than Sambi, and that's also not important to the team that they play for now, and they'll be willing to loan them to us at the business end of the season. So Arsenal going after players that they really want, you know, I don't think is just bidding for bidding's sake. I don't think Arsenal have time to do that, and I wouldn't disrespect them and say that they're just putting in bids to put in bids. You know what I mean? It's a professional, you know, organization. You know, just like I don't believe that Arsenal are just putting in bids to make Bowley overpay. Like we don't have time for that. This is a professional organization. Kabui says Neves is apparently available. He's quality, and you could sell him on if need be. I don't rate Neves, so he's available, but there's a reason why Arsenal have never went for him. Daniel says, get Douglas Luiz. I think that ship has sailed. Amira says, Trossard hat-trick incoming. He lives for these games against big teams. Trust the process. He could play a really big part in this, you know, just because, like you guys are saying, like he plays in really big games or plays really well in big games. And he's different than, you know, Martinelli. And I think Martinelli, the way that he was trying to get past his markers and stuff like that was he had gotten, they know what he's doing. And so he needs to add another layer of unpredictability to his game in order to like continue on. Like, I don't think he has the same ability as Saka where he's doing the same thing and you know he's going to do it, but you can't stop it. I think it's easier to stop Martinelli because he has that element of straight line where he just kind of runs in a straight line, and defenders, that's easy for them to defend if you're not on it. And so Martinelli needs to add another layer of unpredictability to his game, but Trossard is somebody that we haven't really seen at Arsenal, and so he can add a little layer of like, ooh, what is this? But it's not like they don't know him though, you know, but I do think he'll be great. Yo-Yo says, my money is on Arteta getting a red during the City trilogy this season. The media and FA have put the groundwork for this. Yeah, I mean, Arteta at some point is going to get ejected from the game. Like, it's true. Like, I'm surprised it didn't happen against Man United or Spurs, but I think because the games, we were really good in those games. So, there wasn't really much to get upset about. But in a tight game like this against somebody that, Arteta's desperate to beat Pep. Do not get their little friendship twisted. These guys are dying to beat each other. Okay. Pep does not want his apprentice who took two of his players and turned it into a title contending side. He doesn't want Arteta to beat him, and Arteta is dying to get one over on Pep. It probably killed him last season that he wasn't able to be there at the game, and two, we weren't able to get it over the line at the Emirates. So yeah, it could happen in one of these games. It will turn, like, I don't know if it'll turn into like a rivalry or anything like that, but I do think that there's something in this. Mikey says Martinelli initiates movement, whereas Saka provokes it. Both will still improve. I agree. And this is not for me. I'm not saying that like Martinelli is dead or anything like that. I just think players get to certain points where defenders start to know what they're going to do, and Martinelli just needs to go to that next level, and I think he will. There's 300 of you guys in here. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. Let me just check to make sure nothing else new has come out. I am so like excited, but at the same time nervous. Arsenal remain interested in Caicedo, and they are now deciding whether to make a new bid despite Brighton's insistence he is not for sale. So that's kind of what we already knew. There's nothing really like new about the game tonight, but what I'd like to do is get your guys' predictions in for tonight's match. Who's gonna win? Who's gonna lose? What's gonna happen? Let me know. Let me know. All right. Predictions. Get those in. For those of you who are just joined, like, I love my Arsenal onesie and I'm wearing it right now and it's making me so happy. So if you don't have one, you should have one. Hello. Also, why hasn't Fresneda made his decision yet? He was supposed to make his decision within 24 to 48 hours and we still haven't heard anything. Like, are you coming to us or no? Like, because if not, I hate you. And you're the worst player I've ever seen. But if you are coming to us, you're the best right back that I've ever seen. So yeah, that's something that popped into my mind right now. Get your predictions out there. Let me know what you guys think. Let's see. Yami says 2-1 City. Boo! No, joking. Jordan Hill says 4-3 Arsenal. Dev M says 2-2. Alex says 3-2 Arsenal win. Kevy Kev says 3-3 Trossard gets a brace. Yo-Yo says 3-3. Shogun says 1-1 in the replay. Arsenal beat City at the Emirates. Somebody needs to fucking win this game because I can't play City 4 times in a season. It's just too much. C. Wilder says absolutely no idea what this one. It is kind of up in the air, right? Shipiso says 2-0 Arsenal. Mohammed says 2-1 Arsenal. Elliot says Hart says 2-1 Arsenal. Head says 2-2 draw on a replay. Keenan says 2-2. Fila says 3-1 either way. Sakshem says 3-1 Arsenal win, Jess. Steven says 4-2 City. I don't like that scoreline. Martin N says 2-1 with Paul Tierney man of the match. Oh, for City. Got it. Jeremy says 2-1 City. Mohammed says 2-1 Arsenal. Donovan says 5-1 Arsenal. I wish, but like, nah. Yo-Yo says, I think Arsenal are likelier to keep a clean sheet, but if they don't, it'll probably be a draw. Andy says, we don't want to draw, no replay, please. I mean, I just want to stay in it for as long as possible. So if we do draw and have to do a replay, like, So, like, if the choice was for it to be over no matter what today, or have the option for a replay if we do draw, I would say, um, no, I don't know. still want the option of the replay because I feel like at home we could beat them, and I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready. So if we draw, I'll be okay with the replay. Like, I want it to be done, but at the same time, like, I want another chance, if we can't win today. Mahmoud says 3-1 Arsenal, no replay, please. Hugo Garcia says 1-0 to the Arsenal. So yeah, it's actually some mix. Usually when we do predictions, everybody says Arsenal win. This is kind of like the first time in a while I've seen people actually say Arsenal are not going to win. I think it's because we're playing Cité, and it's just a different kettle of fish. They're just a different class of team. It's the best team in one of the best teams in Europe, one of the most consistent teams over the last 5 seasons. They have world-class talent in their first team and their second team, and we know that they can turn it on whenever they feel like it. And so it's going to be a really difficult game, but I do think that, like, Arsenal will give them a game. Like, it's not going to just be an easy day out for them. Keenan says Haaland scores in almost every game. I don't think he's going to blank. I mean, he only really blanked in the 3 games where, like, before. Like, now he's back kind of on a run. So, yeah, so hard. Ibby says, I love the FA Cup. I don't want to let go of it. That's why I was so disappointed when we got them so early on, and I just knew it. Like, you could just feel it, that the 6 and the 14 were going to come out. Like, I just knew it. I had this weird feeling deep down in my soul. I was like, they're about to give us City. Like, and I think it was rigged. But I would have loved for us to play like Birmingham City or something, but it just didn't happen for us. So we have to beat City to go through. And the thing is like, you're going to have to beat big teams in the future. Like, Arsenal need to get used to, in tournaments, playing big teams and having to get it over the line. That's what's going to happen, if we continue to go further in the Europa League, when we're in Champions League, it's just going to be the reality. So we can't be afraid of these big moments. We have to be willing to really go for it. And I think that's what's going to happen today. Mackenzie says, hey, Jess, do you think the Caicedo bid was based off of what's happening with Partey? Where does he got an extension? To be honest, Mackenzie, like, this whole situation, I know what you're talking about. For me, it's just not something that I feel comfortable talking about because of what it is and the nature of it and stuff like that. I think what we can say is that Caicedo and the pursuit of Caicedo is to make sure that if Partey were not available for any reason, we'd have suitable backup. I think that's the best way I can put that today. Let's see. Andy says, I agree. Shame it isn't the semi, but then there's no debate on what strength of side we put out. Keenan says Arteta is going to use this game for fuel no matter which way it goes. If we lose, he will galvanize the players to step it up a notch. If we win, it shows the team that we can beat anybody. I agree. Arteta is really good at the psychological aspect of the game. Dobbs says, I'm looking forward to the game. So excited to see my team play with Jesus. Wish Jesus could play, but I believe in Eddie. I agree. Fran says Arsenal to win 2-1 in the war. Injuries may come. No, I don't want to hear injuries. So my prediction is 2-2 in a replay. I think it's going to be an open game after the first goal goes in for whatever side it is. And it's going to be a typical FA Cup kind of game. We're going to get 2-2 and we're going to have to replay them. And, it's going to be what it is. But when we play them at home, we will win the war. And so that's all that matters. But just wanted to make sure I did this preview. I didn't get a chance to do it yesterday because something came up. And then earlier on in the day, hold on. Earlier on in the day, the Caicedo news came out. So, that dominated everything. Oh, yep. Thank you for the that information, Christopher. I seen it. I'm going to share my screen. Big news. Arsenal wise, Martinelli has agreed a new 4.5-year contract at Arsenal. Previous terms ran to 2024. AFC had a 2-year option, fresh deal in process of being finalized for the 21-year-old Brazilian attacker to extend at the Emirates Stadium until the summer of 2027. That is excellent, excellent, excellent news. Like, I'm ecstatic about that, you guys. Like, seriously, like, getting these boys on new deals is just as important as buying new players. And I know some people only really care about the new player coming in, but what we have in Martinelli and Saka and Saliba is potential world-class talent that could be at Arsenal for 4, 5, 6, 7 years. And all of it probably cost us like 35 million because Saliba was 27 million, Martinelli was like 4 million or something like that, and Saka was free. So making sure that, because if you want to bring in a winger that's going to be a Martinelli and Saka's quality, you're going to have to spend upwards of 100 million. We know that. And so getting them on new deals is so, so important. And this is probably the first of the three, probably the easiest one to do, at this point, because of the profile of Saliba and Saka is a little bit higher than Martinelli's. But I am ecstatic about that, you guys. Like, I'm so happy. Like, I'm so happy about that. I don't know how to say it. Like, I love Martinelli so much, and I'm so happy he's staying, you guys. So if you're just joining, Martinelli has agreed a new 4.5-year contract at Arsenal. So that is done and dusted. Yes. Yes. Dan says Arsenal's front three cost a total of 6 million. Yeah, if you're talking about like Nketiah, Saka, and Martinelli, and not Jesus. Yes, you're correct. Matt G says took a long time to find that pen. Adrian says star eyes. Hugo says watch him score a brace now. That's just crazy. Andy says we started really nervous in the first half against United because they already had beaten us. If we react the same in the first league game against City, could put us to bed before we get going. Yeah, that's why it's important for us to not be afraid to play today. Mark says, great news, getting broken on a great channel. Hit the likes for Martinelli. Hit those likes for Martinelli. That is excellent news. As Elliot says, 1 down, 2 to go. Well done, Martinelli. Subdued says, excellent news. Martinelli, 11. I mean, it's just, yeah. Can you imagine the first trophy we win with this group of players? Like we won the FA Cup, and some of these guys were in the team, like Xhaka was in the team. I think Saka was in the team but didn't really play. Who else was there? I think that's it. So if we're able to, the first time we win something with this team, I think I'm just going to cry. Like, seriously. Like, I have not been this invested in an Arsenal side since the Invincibles. It's been a really, really long time. Dev M says Martinelli will start tonight after this news. Methinks maybe, but I still would like to maybe see Trossard start and Martinelli get a little bit of a rest, because despite this news, I still think that, he's struggled a little bit in the last couple of games. Not he was crap, but yeah, he just maybe needs a little bit of a rest. Yummy says against United. Okay, yeah. I get what you guys are. I get what you guys saying about United. This is a completely different team. United were set up for the counterattack, and so you have to be cautious, because that all it takes is one little mistake and they're in on your goal. With Man City, I don't think it's going to be the same. So 2 different games. I don't think we'll be afraid to play. There were a little bit of nerves early on in the Man United game, but we ended up triumphant in the end. And one thing about winning these games and going behind and coming back, I think, is you get that feeling like if we just keep doing our thing, we'll eventually score a goal. And so that's so important. That's so, so important. Marsh says, can't believe this, Arsenal moving like this. So proud. Exactly. Like, I'm so, yeah. So there's 275 of you guys still rocking with me, which I really appreciate. Make sure you guys like this video and subscribe to the channel on your way out. I will be on the top 6 show in about 15 minutes. So head on over to the Football Terrace after this. Obviously, we'll be previewing the Man City Arsenal game, probably talking some transfers as well. So make sure you guys pop on over to the Football Terrace in about 15 minutes, and I'll see you guys there. Love y'all. See you guys after.